It could be relationships. I found this really interesting. Let's see, Devon Price is.
Hello.
Oh,
We're live.
hello.
Well, hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 41. I don't feel safe around cis women. And what we're going to be doing today is we're looking at an article. Well, it's not an article. It's a Medium blog. I think that it's a blog, right?
I'm not exactly sure what the bar of entry for Medium is. It seems like you just have to be a social justice war. I don't even know. Like, is Medium?
I don't think
Medium?
I don't think Medium is just a place that hosts blogs. I think so. You just have to have an account. I mean, you have one, and I
know
you could write your own articles or blogs or whatever. But I think that, I guess, if there is a bias, which I don't have any reason to assume there is, but if there is one, it would probably, you would see it in how much reach your articles get compared to other people's. So that's my guess.
So I have this vague feeling it's associated with Mastodon somehow, but maybe that's maybe I'm just confused. Maybe
Mastodon is that like a men's?
I think that's like Twitter for, it's like Twitter for the left or something.
What? Twitter is Twitter for the left.
Okay, Mastodon is software-based federating microblogging intended to be an actually viable alternative to Twitter.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean,
so maybe it's for the left now that Elon Musk
owns Twitter. Yeah, maybe.
It's teabagged their precious.
Yeah, but you don't have any problem running into people to debate with on Twitter. So, but
no, we don't.
So it's not like they all left. But anyway, no.
Okay.
So yeah, right, so that's the article we're looking at. It's written by someone named Devon Price, and I don't know what this is about. So I guess we're gonna find out.
Well, do you want like a spoiler?
Sure.
Okay, well, essentially, Devon Price, I believe, is a trans or non-binary man. Maybe doesn't identify as a man. He says he, him, and it's. So you never know, but I suspect he identifies as a man.
I remember when addressing someone as it was offensive.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like it should remain offensive, but whatever floats its boat. But anyway, so he is revealing a hitherto completely unexplored area of abuse, which is abuse by cis women. Interestingly enough, I wouldn't say that it's a completely unexplored area of abuse, since we've been talking about it for 9 years now, and the fact that it's generally covered up and ignored by the establishment, who basically run interference for cis women in particular. I know a lot of people nowadays will say, "Oh, the trans women." No. I remember this cartoon, Family Guy, where there was this trans woman sitting at a bar watching pornography, and the bartender comes over and says, "You can't do that." And she says, "But I'm trans." And he says, "Okay, then." And it's like, no, that's not what's happening.
Do whatever you want all the time. That's what he says.
Do whatever you want all the time because you're trans. That's not what's happening. What's happening is certain groups of people are watching people that they code as men receive the same pass for their behavior as women have always gotten, as cis women have always gotten.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess it's startling when it's men receiving it, or what you think is a man receiving it. Although, I just want to say that we are, would you say, the original gangsters in regards to recognizing cis women and how society enables them? I think we're the original people. So it's not a shock to us to see trans women, where they are recognized as women, receiving the same benefit of the doubt as women. And I've noticed that where trans women are complaining about transphobia, it's where they are being treated as men and not as women. And not just because they don't identify them as a woman, they're just not giving the perks that women are given socially and politically and legally. All right. So I just wanted, anyway, so this guy's talking about this, exposing this hitherto unexplored realm of abuse, which is the abuse perpetuated by cis women. Of course, in his case, he's only talking about the abuse perpetuated by cis women on trans and non-binary individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Still have a little bit of a ways to go to recognize that cis women abuse cis men. We want to use those terms.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, we're using them because he's using them. Personally, I don't. I think the word cis is kind of a
suspect.
Yeah, I think it could be it could be seen as derogatory. I mean, that's usually how it's used in context. So
yeah, I mean, if they are going to offer an alternative language, maybe they shouldn't use it as like a slur or a way of demeaning people.
I don't want to get into it, but I'm not a big fan of the word. So,
but let's face it, cis women, you know, they do deserve to be held to account.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been.
Yeah.
They haven't been. In particular, I mean, I guess it's a step in the right direction that they're being held to account by this person for their behavior towards non-binary and trans individuals. But, you know, maybe one day we can break through that barrier and make them recognize that maybe women should be held to account for their behavior towards men. But, you know, one can hope, I suppose. And anyway,
so before we get into it, I think you probably want to say something.
Yeah, I've already been saying things. Okay, so if you would like to support this show and the stuff that we say, which, you know, we go directly to the eye of the storm that we're in right now, and that is the relationship between men and women, and focus on the fact that it needs to be fixed. It needs to be talked about honestly, first of all. And second of all, we need to start to kick out narratives that are destructive, that are socially destructive. For example, if you continuously pump the poison of men-constructed society for their own benefit at the expense of women into like the social landscape, if you constantly pump this poison, you are going to find that trust and faith, particularly in people's neighbors, start to recede. Why is that? Because you are attacking being a man and you're attacking being a woman. These are the fundamental building blocks of human identity. So when you say men are oppressors and women are victims, nobody trusts each other anymore. You know, other men don't trust other men because they see them as oppressors of women. They don't trust themselves. Women don't trust men. Women don't trust other women because they see them as handmaidens or cool girls, or what's the latest one? Pick-me's. All kinds of words for betraying the sisterhood to the patriarchy. So you create this massive amount of distrust in society. And then suddenly we start seeing all kinds of the effects of this distrust over time. For example, bank runs. I wonder if anybody else has made that connection. When you don't trust your neighbor, what do you think a bank is? Remember the scene in It's a Wonderful Life and why the bank run ended at I forget what the name of the town was, but the town that that was featured in the movie. It was because they trusted. At the end, it was the relationships between the neighbors. The guy was oh goodness, I'm freaking terrible with names. Give me a moment here. It's a Wonderful Life.
Are you talking about the actor?
Yes, the actor.
Swell. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
It was
Bedford Falls is what people are saying. That's the character's name, I think.
Bedford Falls, yes. James Stewart.
James Stewart is the actor, yeah.
So he stops the bank run. And the way that he does it is by appealing to everybody's faith trust, and concern for their neighbor. And that's where it stopped, because they were going to take out their money. Why do they do that? Well, why do people do bank runs? Because they know that only a fraction of the money in the bank is there to be taken out. And if you don't trust other people, what's your first thought? Well, everybody's going to withdraw it. I got to get mine first. I got to get out first before everybody else gets theirs. That's an absence of trust. It's an absence of faith in your neighbor. And that's directly related to narratives which induce mistrust in your neighbor. There you go. But anyway, if you're interested in continuing, or to make sure that we continue to be able to talk about stuff in the way that we talk about it, bring it down to the fundamentals of the relationship between men and women, which is where society comes from, then please go to feedthebadger.com/support and put a few shekels in the hat so we can continue to do so. Because frankly, we don't exist unless you ensure that we do. Please go to feedthebadger.com. Nobody really wants to listen to this. Nobody wants to hear it because it's not fun. It's not about pointing fingers at, insert label and saying they're the reason. It's us. We have to do the work. We got to do the work to kick these ideas out of our brain space and figure out what our identities mean without them. Okay, which is hard damn work. So once again, if you want to support that, feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to send us a message at any time during the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. All right.
And also that we're doing our, and also there was something else. No, I guess you mentioned the fundraiser already.
Well, yeah, we're doing our monthly fundraiser.
Yeah.
Feedthebadger.com/support.
All right.
Which, we started a bit early, so.
No, that's cool.
We'll probably ramp up more towards the end. Okay, let's do this.
So let's go ahead and get started. Here's the article from medium.com. I don't feel safe around cis women. No identity promises safety. All right. I was walking home one Saturday evening when two women began following and screaming at me. Hey, man. Hey, sir. Hey, man. One of the women yelled over and over. She ran across the road and closed up the distance between herself and me. Can I ask you something? She asked, staring me down hard a few inches from my face. Sure, I said with a laugh. Ignoring them had not worked, so I tried being polite. What's up? Why do you walk like that? The first woman asked. She strode a few feet ahead, one arm up, her wrist limp and hips swaying. She cackled at her own homophobic pantomime while her friend laughed and tugged at her sleeve. I winced at them and laughed uncomfortably. They were just kids. It stung to see them being so cruel. Oh, you've got a pretty smile, the first woman said. Oh, did you want to say something to that?
Just bad writing.
Yeah,
I wish they'd be. Yeah, if you're gonna present them as kids, maybe call them teenagers, not women. Because it's jarring. It's jarring for you to refer to them as women, and then suddenly you say, "Oh, they were just kids."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, teenage girl or young woman, you want to establish that because it's sort of surprising right here.
Yeah.
And
it's a twist.
It sounds false. I don't know. It's
From far away they looked like adults and then they got closer. All right. So anyway. Oh, you've got a pretty smile, the first woman said, returning uncomfortably close to my side. Look at that. Look at his smile. Give me a smile again. Come on, give me a smile.
I thought only men did that.
Well, that's usually the narrative, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how young they are because she's, he did, like you said, he said they were just kids, but I don't find this unforgivable, just awkward. They could have been drunk too, who knows, right? My easily frozen autistic ass did not have any social scripts prepared for dealing with this. When men harass me, I have always gotten aggressive and fought back. But two young women cornering me, insulting and sexualizing me, I had no game plan for that. Yeah, go ahead.
And that's actually a pretty universal experience for a lot of men.
Yeah.
Because they know, you cannot respond aggressively because you're screwed.
Yeah.
In fact, you can't even really give that much of an impression that you are rejecting their advances or whatever they want to do, because equally, you could be screwed. As soon as you reject a woman or act in a way aggressive towards her, even if no matter how aggressive she's being or uncomfortable, you become the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And if this guy is perceived as a man, he will become the enemy.
Well, I mean, according to his picture, he does look like a man. But he might just be effeminate. So
yes, yeah, it might be.
I mean,
still,
I think that, but according to his own, account, that was why, in his mind, why he was being harassed by these women was because he had, an effeminate walk, I guess. So,
yeah. And it's what I'm trying to get at is that he's experiencing what a lot of men feel, which is that they're in a catch-22. If they do resist, they become the bad guy. Yeah. Okay.
I wonder, though, if this guy's going to identify that, or if he's just going to say, this is homophobia, and not.
I can give you spoilers, but I won't.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. All right. I looked away from them and kept moving. The women continued after me down the full length of my block, mocking my movements, pelting me with questions, screaming at me, and pressing up close to my body while continually demanding I smile. Literally ask the whole, like, could you smile for me thing is what, like, feminists and women complain about. And
yeah, which is making me worry that this might be and like
it feels like an inversion of the usual narrative.
Yeah, an inversion, and but not. I mean, I don't think it's that improbable considering some of the harassment we've seen women do.
Well,
but
yeah, no.
At the same time, it sort of has that patina of and then everybody clapped or something. Just a
yeah.
Green
But
text.
I mean, like, I have legitimately seen women get pretty aggressive, like, sexually, but that's usually if they've been drinking or otherwise are, sort of inebriated. Because that's like, I was doing my news show, and we were talking about this story of this woman who claimed to be a lesbian but raped a man while he was asleep. And I mentioned that when I was much younger, like in my 20s, I lived in the part of the city of Chicago called Boys Town, which is basically like, the LGBT neighborhood. And I lived close to that, like a block away. So I had friends that were gay, lesbian, people. And I also worked with some because I worked in this art supply store. And again, you're going to get like, alternative types working there. I'll just put it that way. And when I would go out with them and we would go drinking and stuff, they would get drunk and they would, like, make passes at me, even though they were supposedly lesbians, right? And I mean, it happened to me like at least 2 times that I can, like, think of off the top of my head. And what I'm getting at, though, is like how bold they became. And I mean, I'm not saying that men couldn't too, but it's one of those things that you're not supposed to notice when women do it. So.
Well, you're not supposed to notice a lot of things when women do it.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay,
All right. Anyway, when I arrived at my apartment, the 2 women stood outside a while. The first woman hollering, hey girl, at me in a mockery of a gay voice while flipping her wrist until I disappeared inside. I stood in the dark with my back against the door, my shoulders slumped. I began to cry. Okay,
well, now you get what all men get.
Yeah.
Man up.
It's
put that a little ball inside you. And not just unique to you, but you see, this is why people say man up to men. It's basically, we don't want to deal with this thing that you're dealing with, so you are going to ball it up, put it into a little place inside you, and forget about it, because whatever you're experiencing is something we don't want to acknowledge. And of course, individuals who are of Devon Price's ideology often turn around and blame the fact that those societal messages that we don't care about your problems because you're a man, they go and they turn around and blame it on toxic masculinity, quote unquote, instead of blaming it on the messaging that men get, that they're expendable and nobody cares about them.
Yeah.
Because ironically, Devon Price, somebody is going to care about this guy, because he isn't perceived as entirely cis male. Like, he says he's trans or binary or something.
Yeah. That reminds me, when I was 18 years old, I was walking home, and it was a long walk. I used to walk like everywhere. And I was passing through this extremely like sketchy part of the city, and there were prostitutes just hanging out. And one of them approached me thinking that I was there, I guess, looking for fun or something. And now again, we're talking about a prostitute, so maybe this is an extreme case, but she just grabbed my crotch, and just like out of the blue. And I was really uncomfortable. Like, I was, really young. I was inexperienced and the whole bit. And she was like pregnant. So it was really weird. But all I'm saying is, it's the boldness, I could totally see this like being a real story, if not a little embellished. So
yeah, no, I can. It's just the whole smile thing starts to get the feelings like, yeah, that feels a little bit too.
Yeah,
it feels a little bit too cookie cutter, but like you said, you can see it as something that really did happen. And here's the thing, a lot of guys and women, and actually society in general, would just say, well, just suck it up. She grabs your crotch, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's fine for men who are of average to above average emotional intelligence, or intelligence generally, average to above average impulse control, average to above average criminality. But when you start saying that kind of, a sexual assault is a gift to a certain class of man, a boy with low impulse control, low intelligence, low emotional intelligence, they might take you literally. So maybe you could stop that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can make the connection between this erroneous statement and certain groups of men and boys with very low impulse control, very high criminality, and having experienced themselves being sexually abused and told that it's a gift. Maybe we can make the connection between that and them going on and giving that gift to women and girls and children. Can we do that and stop?
Yep.
Just saying. I mean, it works. I guess it works for guys with a high emotional intelligence and a high impulse control, because they will somehow navigate out of being told that no, me being raped, me being sexually abused, that's a gift. But when I do it as a man, it's not a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they can figure things out like that, because they have the ability to have empathy and model people's minds. But there are certain groups of men who need a little bit more help with clarity and clear instructions, because they maybe don't have that level of ability to manage double think and alternative tiers of empathy, is what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could stop saying this stuff. Period. Just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Stop telling men and boys that when they are sexually assaulted or raped or touched against their will, that it's a gift or they should be grateful. Because you may end up encouraging, and for me, I care that it actually hurts men and boys to hear that. But since you guys don't, who say this shit, you don't give a flying rat's ass about boys or men, maybe you'll care that those messages might end up in the wrong ears.
Mm-hmm.
So stop. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Little
so
rant.
Stop.
Just freaking stop.
Stop it. All right.
Stop it.
So, this is the type of degrading, gendered street harassment that women routinely report experiencing from men. So now we get the comparison. Okay. Moments like these contribute to many cis women's perceptions of the outside world and strangers, particularly unfamiliar men, as menacing and unsafe. Yet cis women often refuse to believe that I've been preyed upon by people they share an identity category with, and that's because of such moments I don't feel safe around them. So, and that because of such moments I don't feel safe around them. So basically, the cis women that he knows don't believe him when he says there were other women that have harassed him, and that makes him feel even less safe.
Okay, Devon, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you how it works in this club. If you're a child sexually, emotionally, physically abused by a woman, the people who cape and cis women will tell you that it's your fault, that you should shut up and it didn't happen. Okay? If you are a man abused by a cis woman, if you don't get accused yourselves of being the abuser or being the reason why it happened or being the real instigator, then you're lucky. Yeah. If you're just told to shut up and go away, you're probably lucky, because it could be worse. You could be cast in the role of abuser after having been abused. That's how it do for cis men. Mm-hmm. And if you're another woman abused by a woman, you can shut the fuck up as well. That's how it works. So they got every category covered, including trans and non-binary folk. Okay? Yep. Everybody. Nobody is allowed to talk about this. Nobody is allowed to talk about the prevalence of cis women and their abusive behavior. This is the biggest open secret in our civilization. And I recently just highlighted, amazingly, a BBC article on how men in the UK aren't believed when they talk about coercive control from their female partners. And there was a guy who tweeted, and every time I do this, there's usually at least one guy who tweets and says, I don't know a man or a boy who hasn't been abused by a woman or a girl. There is no man or boy in my life who hasn't been abused by a woman or girl. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I can say that's true about most of the men that I've known too. And often the abuse is just stuff that people just laugh off. Like, have you checked in with your wife? Oh, you're going to get hit with a rolling pin. You haven't told her where you've been for the last 20 minutes. It's just laughed off. Even if he literally is being hit, it's still laughed off. You know, the idea that women engage in coercive control and abuse if their partners aren't under their control is an open secret, and everybody knows that it happens, and it happens on a phenomenal scale. But they all laugh it off, and they all consider it women's prerogative, and they hide it or they try to minimize it behind slogans like "happy wife, happy life." So what is that but emotional abuse? Okay, so this is something that everybody deals with. Other women, men and boys, and now, of course, trans and non-binary individuals. Cis women get to abuse whomever they like. And when anybody calls them on it, that person gets to be accused of everything under the sun. Misogyny, being a chill girl, lying, being the actual abuser. Okay? Because nobody wants to deal with this. Nobody wants to deal with the fact that the uterus havers are evil. And I don't mean always evil, but evil at all. Not the conservatives, not the feminists, not the liberals, not the progressives. There is no political group that wants to fully acknowledge the scope of women's moral spectrum. Okay, the full scope.
Yeah.
And that it goes everywhere from, Florence Nightingale to Cannibal Killer.
Mm-hmm.
All the way. It's all the way. Okay?
Yeah.
And that there is a substantial portion that may be on the end of the moral spectrum that isn't very desirable. Okay? They may not be a cannibal killer, but they're somewhere between wields a freaking rolling pin against her husband and cannibal killer. There's a lot of women in there, and nobody wants to talk about it. Because apparently if we do, I don't know, the world implodes. So we just offload blame onto cis men.
Yep.
And also, actually, no, I'm sure that this guy has also experienced it too. I'm not sure if he's like a trans man or if he's just non-binary in terms of his gender expression, if that makes sense. Because I'm looking at him, I'm like, that's a fairly masculine brow ridge. So
yeah, I mean, anyone can just claim to be non-binary. And the thing is that trans men, they pass really, really well. But I've started to, because I've known some trans men. I went to school with one, and I've seen them online and stuff. There are, I can't quite describe it, but there is something about their skull and like their bone structure in the face that kind of gives it away, even if they have a beard and all that. But yeah, I mean. That it could just be a man that identifies as non-binary or at least partially non-binary because he's okay with he, him, and it's. So
okay, yeah, I think he is a trans man. Having looked closer,
a trans man.
But yeah, like originally he would have been classified as cis female,
as a woman,
or woman. Yeah. So. But I think that is slightly important because I think that's going to lead to him being more listened to. Mm-hmm. But however, like even lesbians who talk about being abused by women tend to get shuffled under the rug too.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think that if you're a trans man and you are looking for women, you are going to get a wake-up call from that. Like that, like you're definitely going to have a wake-up call. And I think that most trans men are interested in women. I think, but I don't want to just
it's more common for trans men to actually be straight, I think, than gay, than with trans women.
Straight in relationship to their
current
gender. Like when they changed it, so if they're men, they're interested in women. Yeah. That's what I mean. So I don't know. So anyway, but if you're pursuing women as a trans man, you have to know how hard that is. No pun intended. Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, I don't feel safe around cis women, and a lifetime of bad experiences has fed into that. This is a TikTok video. I don't think we don't have to watch it, but I could put it on if you want me to. But that's the person right there. So yeah, I mean,
how about afterwards?
Huh?
How about afterwards?
Okay.
You
can't. Basically, they're just describing the thing that I just read. So it's basically talking about the harassment that they dealt with. So. I wrote this piece back in August. I've been stewing on my draft for months, wondering if sharing what happened is warranted. I worry that by sharing my story, people will call me an overly dramatic, self-victimizing whiner and woman-hating misogynist. Well, you wanted to join the club, so I worry that women will lob the same kind of victim-blaming questions at me that they typically received when they are harassed. Why didn't I walk away more quickly? And why didn't I say something assertive? It's all my fault. Why didn't I fight back? Actually, what you're talking about is actually better. It just better describes the way that women treat men who complain about harassment. Not, because that's how you're being treated. Like when she says, when he says, I worry that women will lob the same kind of victim blaming questions at me that they typically receive when they are harassed. Well, if you're a man and you complain or you say this wasn't right or whatever, you're more likely to get laughed at and ridiculed.
Oh yeah, he's getting the wrong set of responses. Victim blaming questions. Now let's take a look at that. What women receive. What women receive, first of all, one set of victim blaming questions is basically around why did you not take preparations for going into the realm of the subhuman? Okay. Now, often those victim blaming questions are very, very misandrist. And I would say that they're basically saying, well, men can't help themselves, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, if you're going to say something like that, if you're going to encourage the idea that men either innately are incapable of dealing with their sexual impulses, either innately or because they are indoctrinated by the patriarchy, which there apparently is no way to unindoctrinate men from. So it might as well be biological. If you're going to say that, then don't complain when people say, well, what did you expect walking among the subhumans? So any human being who embraces any narrative that considers men to be uniquely rapey, regardless if they somehow pretend like they're blaming society or instead of men's biology, you don't get to complain about victim blaming based on saying you should have known better.
Yeah.
If you're going to promote that, if you're going to promote it, if you're going to promote things like, oh yeah, men are trained by patriarchy to rape, and then don't complain when people say, well, you should have known better. Okay?
Yeah.
You don't get to make those complaints. Only people who say, actually, men's sexuality isn't innately rapey. Even if they have higher sex drives, that doesn't mean they're more likely to rape. Just means they're more likely to jump through more hoops. Okay? Only those people who recognize that men's sex drive is no more innately rapey or socialized to be rapey than women's get to complain about victim blaming statements based on the idea that men rape more. Okay, the rest of you shut the fuck up. Get back in your lane.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm sure that Devon is probably somebody who does believe that men are somehow more innately rapey, either through biology or through the smoke screen of patriarchal influence.
They watch too many James Bond movies.
Yeah, or something. Which, if you don't have a means to deprogram men from it, which you don't, then you might as well be saying biology. Okay. All right. So shut up, get in your lane. What's the rest of this?
All right, let's keep
why
going.
I didn't walk away more quickly. Why I didn't say something assertive.
I worry that women will... why didn't I walk away more quickly? Why didn't I say something assertive? It's all my fault. Why didn't I fight back?
Okay, what you're going to get, what Devon is going to get is, why didn't you drop on your knees and kiss them in gratitude? For harassing you. Like they made you, they recognized you, they blessed you with their attention. What do you have to complain about? You should feel grateful. Why aren't you dating them? Why didn't you ask them out? Why didn't you compliment them back? Okay, why didn't you smile, Devon? They were giving you a gift. That's what men get.
Yeah.
Like they don't get, oh, why did you walk away from those women who are harassing you? They get, that wasn't harassment, it was from women. You got a gift. You got a gift, Devon. You should be grateful. A woman paid attention to you. It's like the sun shone. It's like God blessed you for a single... It's like a unicorn ran past your path. You got the holy, holy attention from a woman. Feel grateful.
Yep.
The queen has granted you a moment of her grace, Devon. You fallen, disgusting, filthy subhuman. You got a moment of grace from someone who actually deserves to breathe. Why aren't you grateful, Devon? That's more. It's a little. I'm being a little bit hyperbole, but that's more of what men get.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. But every time my confidence falters and I consider killing this piece, some new trans person reaches out to me with yet another story of a cis woman isolating them, groping them, making them uncomfortable.
Okay. So essentially what he has had is the same experience that we have.
Or, just a man in a kilt. Like, that happens to them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Women think that it's just like open season on guys in kilts.
Well, guys in any kind of sex worker position either, too.
Yeah, strippers,
models. Bouncers are, they are constantly talking about how women behave when it comes to male sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
Like these women on a hen's night and their behavior towards male sex workers, if the genders were reversed, they would end up in jail and on registries, sex registries.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how bad it is. And the bouncers and the strippers will talk about that. Just how unbelievably entitled that women are when it comes to the bodies of male sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was going to say is the other thing that Devon will experience is someone will probably say, "Is this your letter to Penthouse?"
Oh, yeah, they'll just throw the whole thing out.
Is this your fantasy, Devon?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I see that he was talking about, young women finding him sexually irresistible.
Yeah.
Is this something that actually happened to you, Devon, or are you writing this letter to Penthouse?
Does Penthouse still exist?
I don't know. I don't even know if they still take letters. Or is it a Playboy letter? I think it's Penthouse.
No, it's Penthouse where you could send the dirty letters.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I know this is going to come across as really nitpicky, but aren't you, like, when I was in school, I was taught that you should not start sentences with but.
No.
And a but has to come after a comma. I don't know, like, if that is a rule that we're not using anymore or what, but that was what I learned.
Yeah, it's I don't know, bloggers play fast and loose with grammar. But you're right. That shouldn't be, especially, oh my God, it's a paragraph. Man, that's...
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not a writer. I just know that you can't start sentences with but or and or I don't think. So
no, and also, like, it's a new paragraph. Like, and the reason why is because there is an idea missing at the beginning of that but.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the idea that you're opposing with the word but. So you start with a new paragraph and the word but, that just completely orphans the but.
Yeah.
It's just floating but right
it's
there.
Just it's a lonely but with no pretense. All right, but anyway.
But looming out of the dark.
A black trans mom tells me that white cis women try to pick her up in bars by asking about her anatomy, while their angry white boyfriends leer in the distance.
Why are their boyfriends angry white? Okay, are you just trying to...
I don't know. I mean, this person might...
Okay, so black trans women with their... So how many black trans women in the world have white boyfriends?
How many black trans moms?
Yeah, so we're talking about a black trans mother with a white boyfriend who's picking up a trans man.
No, I don't think that's...
Is this like 10 people in the U.S.? Like, it seems like this is a pretty small demographic.
Yeah, it's not the biggest, but, like, no, I think what they're saying is a black trans mom tells me, I don't know why putting mom in there, it doesn't really mean anything. tells me that white cis women try to pick her up in bars by asking about her anatomy,
Oh,
while the white cis women's angry boyfriends leer in the distance. Oh, by the way,
I
they're
got
also
you.
white. Again, doesn't really matter,
And
but
they're
okay.
angry and leering. Well, maybe they're angry because their girlfriend is picking someone else up in the bar.
Maybe. Or they're, I don't know,
Oh, okay. So this
he's a
is
bit
the trend.
maybe they're a bit ashamed and angry because they're,
You know what's really baffling to me about this is
yeah.
technically that this means that a black man got custody.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess. Oh,
well,
yeah, sure. Well, assuming that
because
it's a black trans woman, it just says trans mom. So I can only assume that it was either a trans woman that got custody or it's a trans man that gave birth at some point.
you know, there's just too many variables here.
Yeah, I know.
I
You know what? It's not important. Basically, what she's just giving us another example of women harassing trans men. A butch lesbian explains to me that she's had her ass ogled by cis women at every kitchen job she's ever had. I mean, I don't know, maybe. I don't know if, sometimes people feel like they're being undressed by the other person's eyes, but they don't. How do you confirm that?
maybe they were
Last
just
week, a trans guy friend messaged me to ask when my essay about feeling unsafe around cis women would be going live. He wanted to share it with people to help them understand his own experience.
okay. What a surprise! I'm completely baffled by the black mom one. Way too much going on there, but it doesn't surprise me that people are experiencing abuse and also being marginalized when it comes to cis women.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of social factors to come towards rendering cis women's abuse invisible towards everyone. Like, but you guys aren't like you. This doesn't make you special. Cis men
Nope.
also experience this a
Yep.
lot. In fact, more than you, proportionately.
Yep.
Because when they experience it, like a lesbian, a trans woman, a trans man may get some sympathy, but when cis men experience abuse from cis women, they get none. Starting with this obsession with saying that there are a minority of victims, therefore their pain is somehow less important.
Yeah.
Like this is the unusual. It's not that unusual. Like cis men experiencing abuse from cis women or men experiencing abuse from women is not unusual. It is in fact just as common as the reverse. What's different is that nobody wants to talk about it or recognize it.
Yeah.
So you're not special.
Yep.
Except people will probably treat you better than cis men when you reveal it. Like the thing is that I guess from these comments, you're probably going to get cis women saying things like, "Oh, I never knew. I'm so sorry." Whereas when we talk about domestic violence by women against men, we don't get comments like that.
Nope. So there is a tweet that I guess is, I'm going to read out by someone named Guevara. Pretty clever. And they write, "Cis people, particularly women, kindly stop grabbing my tits when you find out I'm a transsexual. It isn't a stuffed bra. They are my actual tits. It's actually a super uncomfortable experience to be treated like that, and I'd prefer not to be sexually assaulted. Thanks." So, just, again, like, kind of hard to, I guess, verify, but I mean, I know that happens. Like, you don't even have to like look at these kind of like fringe examples of trans people. Just look at how women act towards other women in just regular social settings. Maybe they know them as acquaintances, maybe they've worked together and they're having fun, and women get grabby on other women. Now, a lot of the time the other women don't mind and they just get grabby back, but these are things that men couldn't even fathom doing. Look at, like, I don't know, for example, in cosplay, the sexy cosplayers grope other sexy cosplayers. It's always women. And they do it for the attention, for, you know, a photo shoot or whatever. But it will come out of nowhere, and they'll grab their breasts. So, you know, if you have a problem with that, then it's not just like, it's not limited to, you know, transgender people. And on top of that, it's basically just like a female entitlement thing at the end of the day. You know, women just have entitlement to do that. They believe that they're entitled to that, and if you get upset, then they think you're just being like a, you know, a party pooper or something. And they do it to other women too. And it doesn't matter whether they're comfortable with it or not, because we don't have a societal standard of behavior for women. We basically just pretend like they can't possibly hurt anyone.
My God, this article is freaking long. Okay.
Yeah, it is long. Anyway.
All right, let's charge through this.
Yeah. So then, just 3 days ago, I got accosted by a drunk, recently divorced cis woman at Holiday Club. We were complete strangers who'd played one round of pool together when she announced to me that she was done with straight men and had been looking to get laid on the sapphic dating site Lex. She hadn't been having much luck. She told me that she desperately wanted to get topped by a butch lesbian, but that sounds like a challenge. But that she'd also been aching to fuck her gay male best friend. Then she told me flirtatiously that I looked like Tilda Swinton, a person I in no way resemble and do not share a gender identity with. Then she threw her arms around me and asked her friend to take a photo of us together. I stiffened, but let it happen. As I write this, I can imagine cis women asking me why I went the passive and agreeable route, as if they've never had to assent to the intrusions of a man and then been blamed for it. All you have is comparing this to imagined instances involving men. But
okay, yes, yeah, imagined instances, but this is all right. This isn't a big deal.
No,
I'm sorry. Giving you a hug and wanting a picture with you is, I probably you're overreacting because this is autistic, but you need to work on the fact that you're finding this intrusive into your life.
Yeah.
This behavior, honestly, I don't think that this is. I think that this might be a him problem. Now, this just sounds like really awkward flirting and oversharing.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking about actual like sexual assault. Now the harassment at the beginning is much more close to the line. Following him, continuing to shout at him, which makes people really uncomfortable, by the way, to be shouted out in public.
Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely, I would say, harassment. But this sounds like a drunk person being really awkward, and that happens in bars. And honestly, like I could tell you stories about things women have done, but it's more like actively grabbing parts of my body, trying to kiss me, like literally me having to wrestle myself away from them because they're trying to put their tongue down my throat, stuff like that. That's much more into the realm of sexual assault.
Yes, it is.
As far as I can tell, if not plain sexual assault. But this is awkward, okay? This is just taking her aside and saying, you're drunk, but I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to just let you go now, So, I mean, I think this is a bit of what I'm trying to get at is I think Devon is groping a little bit for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes him uncomfortable, and that's really unfortunate, but it doesn't sound like she was putting her hands down his pants, attempting to kiss him, attempting to grope him. Just a hug and an awkward selfie is, who knows? It sounds like just a bad experience with a fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, yeah, these things happen. You go out in a public space where people are drinking and dancing and partying or whatever. You can't simply expect that you're not going to have to, potentially deal with something like that. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is being made into something bigger. And maybe the reason for that is the mental
Word
state
count.
of the author, like
Also,
sort
I
of
think
like
maybe they're
taking
going for like
things and blowing them out of proportion because they can't.
transsexual harassment, like War and Peace here.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like you can't cope with, um, people being like, I don't know, flirty and obvious about it.
And, yeah, uncomfortably obvious. What I mean is that I think
Yeah.
they're paid by the word.
I am a little bit concerned though with the woman saying that, she really wants to have sex with her gay friend, because it makes me wonder if she wouldn't try to
Yeah.
force herself on him.
Yeah, that is a story I am very curious about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because well, we know that happens. So,
Oh yeah.
if you're like, the thing is that, like, what do they call them? Mops? The straight women that hang out with the gay men and go to the gay bars with them, and they befriend them and they get drunk, and then, not in every instance, but a lot of the time those women try to like get those men to have sex with them. And it's like they see it as a kind of challenge, like, oh, I'm gonna make him
Oh
quit.
wait, it gets worse. Okay, so
Yeah.
apparently this individual front loaded this. Okay, I'll read this paragraph if that you don't mind. Yeah, but I get what you're saying. So it's like this is the hanging question. What happened to the gay friend? It's like, when you read a story and there's a dog, you're like, what happened to the dog? No, I don't care about this guy avenging his dead wife. I want to know what happened to the dog in the first scene. It's like, I don't care. I want to know what happened to the gay guy.
Yeah.
The woman at Holiday Club kept grabbing at my hands and embracing me throughout the night, no matter what I did. I jammed my fists in my pockets, turned my back to her, and even crossed the dance floor to get away. But she continually came back, dancing around me, hollering and touching and trying to drag me wherever she went. Okay, now this is getting
Yeah.
bad.
But then why are you
now,
why are you staying there? You should just leave.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean,
or get her to go, like get security or something.
Get some friends,
Yeah.
like if you don't want to experience this. And the reason why people say this is, when you say, I don't want to experience this, is your desire not to experience this worse than going to your friends or going to a bouncer and saying this woman is, oh shit, I forgot. This is a trans man who might be perceived as a man. Going to the bouncer is going to be useless.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you're right. This is trickier. I would just leave.
Yeah.
She even asked me once if I was feeling okay, and then she grabbed hold of my arms and twirled herself in my arms as if that would make me feel better. I went on like this for hours. Okay, are you feeling okay? No, miss, go away.
Yeah. Right.
You might want to consider getting more assertive for your own sake. But yeah, this is at this point what he's talking about is getting much more into something that's unconscionable. Like following him around and touching him. I was so baffled by the brazenness of it all. The misgendering, the flirtatious remarks. That I've been told I look like a particular male actor. It happens.
Ooh.
It's not really misgendering. They mean that you look like a female version of that person or a male version of that person. The flirtatious remarks, the grabbing, the tugging me about the dance floor, and I didn't know how to respond. The woman was far shorter and slighter than me. I'm nearly always read as male by other people these days, despite this woman undermining Tilda Swinton comment. In open conflict, no one would see me as the victim, and her as the perpetrator. Oh, Devon, you're so close.
Tilda Swinton is a woman.
Yeah, Tilda Swinton. He's saying that being referred to as
because he
was
identifies as a
undermining.
man. Well, Tilda Swinton's kind of a androgynous woman. She is a little androgynous.
But what I'm saying is that people will compare you to an actor or an actress who isn't the same sex because they see you as looking like a female or male version.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but anyway, I'm just saying, listen to this. In an open conflict, no one would see me as the victim and her as the perpetrator because he's perceived as male. So close. So what you're saying, Devon, is that you were stuck having to endure this woman's, at this point, yes, she's sexually harassing you and sexually assaulting you because you knew that you would get no help because you are perceived as a man.
Yep.
What makes you think that cis men have any kind of different experience from that?
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Well, maybe she thinks that they do, but that men are grateful for the attention.
Yeah.
But she's different, or he is different.
He's different because he's a trans man.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I just froze. I mean, can you extend this to cis men? In fact, it's worse for cis men because although you pass, or you say you do, cis men are going to be perceived as being even more masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they have even less latitude for being seen as a victim. And you're also alluding to the fact that it is of benefit to be seen as a victim because then people come to your aid. And when you aren't able to be easily seen as a victim, there is a cost to that, which is that those people who are easily seen as a victim get to do whatever they want to you. And you have to take it. It's actually really horrible if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think in a genuinely caring society, we'd be very careful about the effect of that on people who aren't easily seen as a victim. The more I sit with what happened and how long it went on, the sadder I feel. And the more this woman's mistreatment connects in my mind to a rich web of past ones, creating a long tangled snarl of invasions that began when I was very young. Yeah. If you are masculine looking.
And well, maybe they weren't when they were very young. So
Well, yeah, but in general, like women do tend to target men and masculine looking women.
Yeah.
And a lot. Like I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah. I can
Okay,
take the next one.
Yeah, sure.
All my life, it has been women who have been the most enthusiastic about harassing me and commenting loudly on my body. So basically, she's saying it's almost exclusively women in her case, or his case. How it moves, how it's shaped, how I cover it or choose not to cover it, how much they want a body like mine for their own, how much they want to touch it, how profoundly I am wrecking its feminine potential with my gender transition, and how paradoxically sexy the damage I've done has made me.
Just continue, because you got a lot to get through.
Yeah, I have been street harassed and physically assaulted by random men before, too, of course. I've been in close relationships with men who became physically and emotionally abusive, so I am no stranger to the danger men can pose, especially when you're alone in private with them and have given them your reliance or trust. Most cases of abuse are perpetuated by a person the victim knows intimately and who holds some degree of power over them.
Okay, all right. Okay, do you think this woman, Miss Holiday Club, held power over you, Devon? Because she did. She held the power of being perceived as a victim. And almost every single woman holds that power over the men they're with.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there. Okay, continue, Brian.
All right. No, it's okay. My experiences, like the experiences of most victims, give the lie to our culture's notion that danger comes from the unknown and that only those familiar and similar to us are safe. Familiar men have preyed on me. Why are we talking about men now? Yet in my experience, it's been cis women who have been far more overly familiar with me, and their sense of ownership over my body seems to run deeper and far more socially sanctioned. No one is supposed to feel threatened by a cis woman's touch. That's true. But when you say that...
Go ahead.
Anyway. Cis women engage physically with casual acquaintances, friends, and even colleagues far more readily than men. And rarely seem to fear being accused of violating consent when they do. No shit. It's incredibly rare for anything a cis woman does to be judged as predatory, dangerous, or creepy, especially if she is also wealthy and white. Cis women have made
wealthy is necessary there, but
yeah,
okay.
I don't think the white is either, but
well, honestly, I think that black women, I'm going to be really blunt, A lot of the stuff that Black women have to deal with is because they are perceived to be more masculine than white women.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually replace that with if she is also feminine and attractive rather than wealthy and white.
Yeah, sure. Cis women have made sexual comments about my body during work meetings, at the doctor's office, at parties, weddings, and lunch dates. Online, women comment openly on my changing appearance, expressing desire and revulsion in nearly equal amounts.
Yep.
Yeah, well. Women have followed me down street corners, calling me their angel and asking for my number. A woman once told me I was asking to be street harassed because of the cut of my tank top. In high school, a teen girl cornered me naked in a gym shower and screamed slurs at me while I stared blankly ahead, scrubbing myself and willing her to go away. She threatened to crush my head against the lockers. Well, that doesn't sound sexual. There were many women around us when this happened, but no one said or did a thing. That's normal. That's not unique to you. They knew I was the awkward gender freak in the equation, so no matter how much she sexualized and threatened me, I deserved it.
Okay, yeah, no, it's that you are the more masculine in the equation.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're asking for by transitioning to being a man. You are asking to have all of your claim on victimhood removed, which means you no longer get to claim victimhood if women decide to treat you as their sexual property.
Yep.
That is the social code. Men are women's sexual property in our society. Yep. And not just, and honestly, not just on a social level, also on a legal level. I have read the legal case where this is established, that a woman can rape a man and the child still gets child support because it doesn't matter if he consented. Like his consent to the sex is irrelevant. He has a financial obligation. That's chattel, basically. Mm-hmm. Okay? So men's bodies are women's property in our society. That's what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to experience more and more of the more you appear to be a man. And here's the other thing. The women who are attracted to you are a minority of women. I think we can establish that because they're attracted to a man, a trans man. That's not going to be the majority of women. So while you are experiencing this harassment based on a minority of women who are attracted to you, the average man, especially men who are attractive, are going to experience harassment. Well, particularly men who are attractive, because I guess a lot of men are completely invisible, are going to experience harassment at a much higher scale because there are more women who are going to be attracted to them. No offense, but it's generally a minority who specifically are attracted to lesbians or trans men. Still there?
Yeah. All right.
So I'm just pointing that out.
What?
I'm just pointing it out that this is how society do. Men are women's sexual property.
Yeah. Random cis women have asked me about my pubic hair and then told me not to shave it. They've categorized my body shape using household objects and fruit as metaphors. Yeah, they do that to men. When I had breasts, women asked me if I'd gotten implants. When I stopped having them, women asked if I'd gotten a mastectomy. And they've touched me all over, sometimes forcefully, often lasciviously, and assume that because they are women, I won't ever complain. That sounds right. I don't feel safe around cis women, and I wish there was more space in our culture for a guy like me to say that.
Well, we would have been able to create more space for you.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Not a lot of people want to listen to what we have to say, and there's a huge and very well-funded body that actively tries to suppress what we have to say.
Mm-hmm. All right. Why are women like this to me? Something seems to have always marked me as other to women from the very start. Even as a prepubescent child, I inspired a strange blend of condescension, hypersexualization, and ire in women, nearly everywhere that I went.
Oh, that's disturbing. Like, essentially, he's saying that he's been sexualized by adult women as a child.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh,
pretty uncomfortable.
prepubescent. Yeah, absolutely. That is weird and messed up. Do you have any thank yous to give before I keep going?
No,
Just so
no,
no.
actually, nobody is really.
Yeah, I haven't gotten
Nobody
any
is.
super chats or super chows or
No,
anything
nobody.
like
It's
that.
really quiet today, guys.
It is.
Are we doing something wrong? Anyway, if you
Yeah.
want to send a message, please go to feedbadger.com/justthetip, or you can support us for the month at feedthebadger.com/support. It'd be really appreciated because maybe this is a topic that you guys aren't really interested in. I just found it fascinating because he is essentially saying what we talk about. And he's experiencing what we talk about, which is the fact that in many sense, socially and legally, men's bodies are treated like property of women. Like, it's expected that men can submit to women sexually, and that if they don't, then there's something wrong with them. So anyway, please send us a message if you want to talk to us. Those super chows go to supporting the Badger Cave, which is really critical. Once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Really appreciate it, guys, because it feels like we're yelling into the void today.
Yeah.
But all right, let's
all right. Of
going.
course, women criticize one another and spread rigid standards of toxic femininity. Oh, she's using the term.
Toxic femininity
all
is
the
different
time.
than toxic masculinity. Toxic femininity is toxic masculinity is about making yourself into an abuser. Toxic femininity is about submitting to abuse. So it's not the same. And it's ridiculous to say that it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, it sounds like because she's talking about essentially women's like skill with reputation destruction, and calling it toxic femininity because that's why she said, oh, they criticize one another and spread rigid standards.
Holy shit. Like, we're not even halfway through this freaking article.
Yeah, it's long. I think there's a lot of like woe is me in this. I think we get the general idea. Like, yeah, cis women can be pretty shitty. That's basically it's. But she's making it sound like that's like almost the majority, if not all, cis women. I mean, they all can do that, but and get away with it. But yeah, I don't know, like how much longer you want me to go, or is these?
Skip to. Okay, I'm going to skip to the next paragraph that's interesting.
All right, go ahead.
Women bully and insult other women all the time. Such abuses have inspired countless teen dramedies and Taylor Swift songs. But I've never seen a woman follow around another woman down the street begging for her number, oohing and awing provocatively at the swishing of her hips while demanding to give her victim a smile back. Those are the actions of a person with gendered power. Is the kind of aggression men routinely direct towards women in order to keep them oppressed. Oh God, Devon, you're... But it's also the aggression that cisgender straight women weaponize against trans people, queer people, and gender nonconforming men. Okay, I'm going to blow your brains out. Blow your mind. A man who complains about a woman's sexual aggression towards him is considered gender nonconforming by society. So literally, this includes any man who isn't enjoying being sexually assaulted by a woman. Okay? The instant he speaks up, he's considered gender nonconforming. And he will be socially stigmatized. I mean, I guess in some places, guys will get some kind of, sometimes, like, sometimes they'll get some support in very specific places. But for the most part, if a man talks about being a victim of a woman, he will be subject to degendering. All right. So what you're essentially saying is also the aggression that cisgender straight women weaponize against trans people, queer people, and men. Because the instant that a man says, I don't like this, he's gender nonconforming.
Yeah.
Okay?
Here's a juicy 2 paragraphs, okay? They're short.
Mm-hmm.
I routinely get invited to gender-exclusive spaces, usually ones organized by cisgender women. These, because men don't generally care about that, that's why. And they're not allowed to do it. So, these spaces say they are for women and trans people, or women and non-binaries, or they are for wimixen, or women and femmes. What unites is that they are for women, by which the organizers mean cisgender ones. Everybody else is considered either a hard-to-parse afterthought who'd better try their damnedest to resemble a cis woman, or an unwelcome, unsafe, unrelatable man. Cis women say they want women's only spaces for reasons of safety, but what they actually want are spaces where there are no cis men. Ding, 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 yes. This leaves them as the most powerful gender minority around. No, they already are. Like, men wouldn't change that if they were there. Any sense of safety that hinges on holding power over other people is a false one. Abuse is made possible through imbalance and inequity.
It's like he's getting so close, but not okay. It's the kind of aggression men routinely direct towards women in order to keep them oppressed. All right, Devon, I'm gonna completely destroy your worldview. You say the feminist worldview is that men hold the majority of the power. If they use this aggression to keep women in check, they would not use that power to make it illegal and to fight against it, which is what they do. So this is wrong. It's like, it is incomprehensible. It's like saying we live in a capitalist society that made money illegal. No, doesn't work. Fundamentally, this doesn't work. This is you trying to justify how women are treating you.
Yep.
Trying to justify how cis women are treating you.
Yep. And you're making it, I think,
you're trying to force it into a gender binary. You're trying to force this abuse into a gender binary. And then there's these moments where he almost like surfaces for air. Any sense of safety that hinges on holding power over other people is a false one. Okay. In societies that have a power structure, the people on the top of the power structure are able to command the behavior of the people below based on their safety, right? Perception of their safety, because their safety, the people on top, is more important than the comfort and freedom of everyone else. Haven't you noticed that?
Yep.
Okay? So this is the fact that women can use their victimhood and their vulnerability and professions of safety in order to manipulate society and everyone around them suggests that we live in a society that values it, okay? We live in a society that values women's safety and their comfort. Societies that value things that value those things support maintaining them, all right? And they don't, it's incompatible to recognize this and then in the next breath say, no, we live in a society that doesn't value those things. You see what I'm saying? We live in a society that's structured around men destroying women's safety, hurting women in order to make society work.
Yeah.
All right? Like, go through this and resolve this gendered fuck in your mind. Because right now, what's happening to you is you got a binary and it's screwing up your thought processes. And your binary is that men have to be the moral actors in society and women have to be the moral patients. This is bullshit. Our society values women's safety, as you have identified clearly, and a society that values women's safety is not a society that turns around and abuses women to maintain itself. That's ridiculous. This is the equivalent of saying we live in a capitalist society that hates capital.
Yeah.
All
right. I got a couple super chows. So.
Oh, cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So thank you. Scapegoat for $5 says, see how this guy needs to lay out the breadcrumbs of, oh, but remember, men do the assault, don't you know? With every other sentence. God forbid they lay out the problem they are writing on.
Yeah, I know. Like it's like watching somebody who just, all right, this is someone who has internalized a gender binary. when it comes to agency. That's why I do that all the time, no matter who I'm referring to. You've probably heard that. I do that to Brian. I do that to Hannah. I do the weird sheep thing. It's because pronouns fucking do my head in for some reason.
Sure. It's okay.
Probably because I can't say names. But he's so close. He's making these observations, but he's still tied to this traditional gender dichotomy that men have agency and women just don't.
Maybe he thought that he was going to, I don't know, like he imagined his experience as a man was going to be different. And, the reality is, and I think that one of the ways they're trying, that this person is trying to account for that is to say, oh, they're not doing this to me because I'm a man. They're doing this to me because I'm trans.
Yes. Well, I don't think he's saying that, because I think he's recognizing that trans women get, and at least in these spaces, they get a different kind of they're in a different kind of situation.
Trans women or trans men?
Trans women.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, look at how Drew Barrymore was treating Dylan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, with that exaggerated sort of female...
Super precious. Yeah.
Yeah, super precious. And then it's something that it's like almost an exaggeration of how women treat each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
Are we going to continue with the super chows?
Yeah, I got two more. So Zapier is like, that means that they didn't put a name, right? Anonymous gave us $20 and says,
yes,
no, it's
anonymous.
Not my legal... What? Oh. No, it's not...
no, it's not my legal name. Yes, you have entered your super chow as anonymous, so we wouldn't have guessed that was your legal name. Okay, continue.
Yeah, it's weirdly predictable how at the same queer ideology is about challenging systemic issues and completely oblivious to the systemic issues it is reinforcing.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Like no. Yes. Like this is 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're watching this young man contend with the differential between the ideology. It's not even an ideology. I mean, God, for God's sake, this idea that women are passive victims and damsels and men are the ones who take action, positive or negative, is certainly not a new. Okay, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The idea that men have constructed society for their own benefit using their massive powers of agency to victimize women, that's new. That's taking it another step. But it's the same thing, right? It's basically saying men are blue, women are pink, except, men are like aqua blue and women are a particular shade of coral pink. It's basically the same dichotomy. And he's stuck in that.
Yeah.
He's stuck in that dichotomy. He cannot break out of it and just be like, actually, women have a lot of agency when it comes to sexual possession of others.
Yep.
Women are allowed to touch. They are allowed to sexually molest. They are allowed to up to rape, and including rape, people. And the response by society is, what's wrong with you for not appreciating it? Because women's touch is a currency in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? For a lot of people, if you have been raped by a woman, it doesn't matter how gonorrhea encrusted her genitals are, or the fact that she now is pregnant with your child or some shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's the equivalent of her handing you like $5,000 to a lot of people.
Yep.
Because it is part of our value system. Okay?
Yeah.
Like that, you might as well say money, women's touch, women's social approval, women's sexuality is money in our society.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is a form of currency, yeah.
It's a currency. And our society upholds that currency.
Yep.
And abhors when it is victimized, when women are victimized for the quote unquote currency. And this is not a literal statement. This is a metaphor, so don't go in the objectification bullshit. So it's like he's not getting that. And where he's fumbling is, I think, connecting women's individual moral agency to a society that enables it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So one more big super
Yes.
chow, $50. Thank you, Jame Memes. $50.
Wow, thanks.
So yeah, pretty nice. And
maybe I should be doing more passive aggressive whining.
Yeah, I guess you do. Is Devon slowly getting red pilled? I remember running through all of those contradictions after being unable to reconcile the modern social expectations with my personal experience through an abusive relationship. Cognitive dissonance do be a step, it seems. Well, Devon's close.
Yeah,
Devon's close. There's just something that he needs to let go of, and then it'll be really clear.
Okay, what he needs to let go of is this kind of purified notion of manhood and masculinity. And I think there's it's not just feminists, certainly conservatives buy into this. I think actually even when we had that discussion with Sargon, it felt like a little bit
blue-pilled people, basically.
Or purple-pilled. Like you buy into this. And it's this idea that masculinity and femininity are these completely separate things, which is really hilarious because I'm seeing the same dynamic among people who are conservative as people who say, oh, well, I'm part of the gender binary. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a gender non-binary. I'm like, well, then stop continuing to perpetuate the binary then, And it's this desire to make men and women these very two distinct things. And with people who so-called question the gender binary and feminists and all that, they actually construct one of the most strict binaries possible, which is that men act and women exist in an existential category completely separate from men, which is basically a substrate that receives men's actions. I know that's a lot of words, but essentially men are these kind of like endless action things.
Yeah.
And women are what they act on. So crazily enough, there'll be like this gender non-binary person who says, I don't know what a woman is, but whatever a woman is, a man has to take responsibility for her comfort. It's like, or for their comfort, for whatever,
Right.
It's like, that is the binary. That is
right.
A man acts and his actions are judged by how they affect this thing that only experiences, which is a woman, right?
Yeah.
And they still buy into that. They still construct that binary. And in fact, it seems to be driven underground, but it's like you have to have that really strong separation between masculine and feminine. Well, I'm going to tell you something, and maybe people will find this hugely offensive. Men and women are really not that different in a lot of ways, especially human men and women. I mean, there are differences, and they are important differences, but for the most part, human men and women tend to have very similar goals, if that makes sense. Like men have different kind of skills and abilities, women have different kinds of skills and abilities, but generally the two come together with the same goal, which is the perpetuation of the species via pair bonding and building these elaborate like termite hives called societies, and we share that goal. We share that kind of simpatico. That's why we share a language, by the way, which is really weird, So we are not that different. And often, despite the fact that men tend to occupy a intellectual space where they view themselves in terms of the consequence of their actions. So you want, like the most stereotypical thing about men is, you want to go and blow something up. Well, that's because you're making a big action and it's cool, right? Because you're making a big effect. And that is something that's satisfying to men, is that they can see that they make a big effect. It's like why they want huge excavators and other fast cars and other stuff like that. It's all about having that huge effect through your actions. And women are more about how they experience stuff. Well, men and women become more enlightened or psychologically stable when they're able to share the psychological skills of the opposite sex. So when men integrate the ability to recognize and articulate how things affect them, it improves their outcomes psychologically. When women are able to recognize how their actions affect the greater world, it improves their outcomes psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
So I know this is a statement that people are going to freak out about, but we're much better when we understand each other, and we're much better when we respect each other's different ways of managing the world and integrate them. But that's not this. This is a young man who is really struggling with the fact that he wants to maintain a gender binary in which men act, or men's actions are more powerful than women's, and women receive those actions, and those actions are judged by how it affects women. That is the gender binary he wants to maintain. And it is in direct conflict with his observations about being the victim of women's assumption that his body is their sexual property. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And it's leaving him in a state of, I think, cognitive dissonance. Maybe this is the red pill process.
Maybe. I mean, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, me too. Like, that would be cool. Like, it'd be nice for this guy to come to the realization that, you know, he can have that psychological flexibility. You know?
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
you know,
that might also, it could also potentially challenge his identity as trans.
Yeah.
Because he may find that if he can accept being a woman, the idea of a woman plus having actions that matter, it may be more comfortable to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay. Like, that's something. Let me use an example. So there's a young man in our community who was originally identified as a woman, but as a result of giving him a space to be comfortable with recognizing how things affect him, and, you know, also giving him a space that men are treated with, you know, like, it's good to be a man, it's good to be masculine.
Yeah.
Those things bring good things into the world. He started to detransition and identify as a man. So when you give people the freedom from these straitjacket roles that the progressives, the so-called liberals, the feminists are putting on men and women, when you break down this idea that men and women occupy two completely separate realms of existence, which is basically what feminism does, it forces men and women into two separate realms of existence. If you break that down and allow the appropriation of each other's cultures, you might find that a lot of these people become more comfortable being men and being women again.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so I kind of like skimmed through the rest of the article.
We have a super chow too.
Yeah, we do have another super chow. So I'll read that first.
Interesting?
But no, I mean, like, he talks about the like the problems with trans women's issues, like their spaces, you know, and all that. But that is about the extent of it.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of repetition.
Yeah, it gets repetitive, and then she goes back to the, you know, and then she talks about this book by this book.
Here's a good paragraph. This is basically the cognitive dissonance on display.
All right, let me read this super chow first.
Okay, then I'll read these
so I don't forget. So Anonymous again. I don't know if it's the same person from before, but they give us $50. Thank you. That's a great donation. And says, "Hey Badgers, have you heard about the 18 female prison guards resigned or jailed due to their entanglements with inmates? I guess some incels might consider that route as an option. Not the best or moral idea, though." So, yes, I did. You should have watched HBR News this Tuesday that just passed. That was one of the stories we covered. And yeah, I mean, it was described as intimate entanglements and affairs and everything but rape, which is what it is.
Well, it is rape.
Yeah, it is
Like,
rape.
and
Yeah.
I guess I hope that you're being like really darkly macabre when you say that.
I
Like
think they're
incel.
being, yeah, because they put entanglements in
I
quotes.
don't think incels need to be raped more because a
Yeah.
lot of them have already been sexually abused.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, these are not entanglements. I'm sorry. When you're having sex with someone who's basically imprisoned by you, that's rape.
Yeah, it is.
I'm willing to go out. I'm willing to say that that level of power differential makes it rape.
Well, if men
I'm
were
willing to
doing
say,
that to women in prison, they would certainly call it
yeah.
rape. They bury those guys under the prison.
Okay, and I'm gonna say something controversial. Okay, I think that women having sex with their jailers in prison is a situation where they probably still have enough social power to cry victim
Mm-hmm.
that it might make it more equal. It's still really freaking dodgy. So I think the real comparison would be more like a woman imprisoned by a terrorist organization in like the Middle East or something, where
Yeah.
life is cheap, right?
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
but yes, definitely a male prisoner not only is dealing with absolutely no agency over his life, and the guard has the ability to tell when he eats, when he sleeps, if he's in like solitary, where he goes. Every aspect of his life is controlled by that prison guard, that female prison guard. Plus, she has the power of professing victimhood over him. So that's not entanglements. It's not unfair. That's outright rape.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, no, and not only that, but these guys, like a lot of the people in, a lot of the men in prison, probably women as well, they have like they have been abused. They have, um, like they're mentally often disabled, like emotionally abused, mentally disabled. Like they're not people that you're supposed to. I mean, I know that they're criminal and we need to contain them, but they're also not necessarily people who it's appropriate to prey on in this way is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're dealing with a pretty compromised population of men,
Yeah.
and and also from what I can tell, there are a lot more nonviolent male offenders in prison than there are in female prisons.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, this is yeah, I hadn't heard about it personally, but apparently Brian had and
I did a
chides you
story
about
on
not
it.
listening to the news show.
It
But
would be really infuriating, Allison. Almost every week we have at least one story that really pisses people off. Like I think I blackpilled the shit out of Dr. Ranamaker. Um yeah,
oh my
so
god,
yeah.
jeez, I didn't even think he could be blackpilled at this point.
No, he I think he really is now. Like seriously. I don't
If there was any
so,
hope, we crushed it out of him.
but I mean somehow I remain sane. I think it's because I don't know, like that's not my reality. So
Yeah, I know, but it's also the other thing is that it's easy to remain sane when, okay, like one of the reasons why I brought up this article is that I see the progression of things here. So feminism subsumed like okay. So we start with the suffragettes. The suffragettes hated black people and they hated the idea of black suffrage, and they used the fear of black suffrage in order to get women's suffrage in a lot of ways. And then there was a like sort of a revolution in feminist thinking, and they realized that they could appropriate black people's struggles for their own. But it's like the problem is that racism hits black men much worse than black women. And
yeah.
like the violence, who is the target, the majority target of lynching? Well, it's men, but
it's just men. It's not even black.
Yeah, it's men. But
Yeah.
in particular, it was black men. Well, there was a majority of black men who were lynched, but it was men.
Yeah. But I'm saying white men
It's
were lynched
marginalized
as
men.
well.
Yeah, white men, and usually marginalized ethnicities. So,
Yeah.
but it was black men, and it's black men who continue to suffer loss of their position in their communities, loss of their relationships to their children, in higher rates of incarceration and also interactions with the police. So that the racism really is directed at black men. And to some degree, Black women are more insulated from it. To use an example, Black men had to go to war before they were considered for the suffrage. Like, they literally had to go get killed to uphold a society that recently had enslaved them in order to even be considered for suffrage. That was not the case for Black women. Mm-hmm. Okay, so racism really is, as far as I can tell, the effects of racism hits Black men much more. And it continues to this day. In fact, if you just looked at the situation for Black men, I think you could make the argument that racism has gotten worse. Institutionalized racism has gotten worse. If you just look at the situation for Black men and how they've been removed from their communities, how many of them are incarcerated and all of this other stuff, and how nobody seems to give a shit that we have to care about the progression of a Black boy into a Black man with some kind of status in his community. Nobody cares about that. And nobody even wants to talk about it. But if we actually did look at that, we would see that, yeah, there is an argument for racism having increased in this current era. But regardless, for the most part, racism is much more directed at Black men. Feminists took that. They were like, yeah, we hated you guys, but now we find that your victimhood is useful to us. So we'll just
as you're
yoink,
dying.
That's ours. Yeah, yoink, that's ours. And it's absurd because feminists, of course, say, well, this racism is bad, but intersectionality, women have it worse. Therefore, white women are the worst off of all. There you go. So that's how it works. And it's sort of absurd when you're dealing with racism because it hits Black men so much worse. But you could almost make the argument because there is racism against Black women. Like I said before, I think it's because in many ways they're perceived as more masculine than white women. But you can make that argument because there's like maybe 95% really more directed towards Black men, 5% directed towards Black women. But we still care. I mean, there was a reason why they chose Rosa Parks instead of the many Black men who also got kicked off buses before her. Because even white society at that time would be like, oh, a genteel older woman who's being treated like shit. No, we don't like that. But it's like that 5%. You can sort of stretch it to say women have it worse. It's still absurd, but maybe. Then we get to LGBT. Not a T. Let's keep T separate. Then we get to gay rights, right?
GLBT or GLB.
GLB. Now we're at GLB. And then feminists are like, that's some tasty victimhood you got there. I think we can take that. And at this point, now we're getting into levels of absurdity that shouldn't even be possible because nobody cares about lesbians.
Yeah.
Men are being...
The thing is the lesbians took over the gay rights thing in the 70s,
it's because of this.
So
nobody cares about them. Like, literally nobody cares. In fact, in many ways, it's more controversial to be a woman who likes men than to be a woman who likes other women. Homophobia is exclusively directed towards gay men. Society is neutral to lesbians at worst. Yeah. Okay? So now this whole idea that women have it worse is attaining levels of absurdity that shouldn't even be possible. But, feminists appropriated that and it made it work for them. Now we're at the trans. And I'm going to tell you how freaking absurd it is to pretend that women have it worse off and have any claim of victimhood when we're dealing with a trans minority. All right. Now, Black women experience racism. Lesbians are pretty much treated neutrally, if not considered less weird than women who actually like penis. Women are 100% celebrated when they gender bend. Mm-hmm. Women are 100% celebrated, encouraged, financially supported when they want to appropriate men's clothing, men's activities, men's spaces, men's jobs, men's academic achievements. We, as a society, consider female gender bending to be a right. It's a moral pillar upon which we revolve our society. We celebrate women entering men's spaces. We celebrate them kicking men out of their communities. We celebrate them overwhelming, like getting into men's occupations that men prefer, getting into anything that men have constructed for themselves. We think that women should be there and we should support them in doing that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the idea that there is any space that women should not occupy, be that social, be that community, be that like fashion, is absolutely taboo in our society.
Even men's bathrooms and locker rooms.
Even men's bathrooms and locker rooms.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing that men have that we don't think women should have the opportunity to have for themselves. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Not a thing.
Yep.
We 100% celebrate women occupying everything that men have, including their identity.
We celebrate them existing. We're doing it this month.
Yeah, but not just them existing. We celebrate the process of women appropriating anything that we code male. We celebrate that and we encourage it. We fund it. We give it bursaries and honoraria and scholarships. We have preferential hiring. So this idea that women are oppressed by a social attitude that wants them to remain gender conforming, Black women, yes, you can make the argument that they're racially discriminated against. Sure.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. Lesbians, no, not really. Everybody's neutral about them. Women deciding to exit their gender category and appropriate whatever they want, actively celebrated by our society, actively promoted. Huge institutions funding this. This is something that we center our moral landscape on. And feminists are trying to look at that. Look at that 24/7 billion-dollar industry celebrating women gender bending and say that women who gender bend are oppressed. Now we're not just reaching levels of absurdity that are inconceivable. These are levels of absurdity that if you harnessed them, you would have perpetual energy. We would be at Alpha Centauri. We would have freaking class 2 technology if we could harness this level of absurdity. There is absolutely no argument you can make to say that women are oppressed by a society that wants to keep them in their gender role. Not when they're being paid to leave it.
Yeah.
Okay? So the only claim to victimhood that in many cases the gender non-binary and trans community can get is the treatment of men by our society and forcing them to conform. Because for some reason, although we think women should have the right to have access to everything that men built, which really floors me. It's like, men build a house, and for some reason, because women don't have access to it, they have the right to have access to it. How did that become something that made sense to anyone? Well, men go off and they build another house. And then we tell women, you have the right to have access to that shit too. Like the only thing left of this kind of gender bending or deviating from your gender category, the only thing left is how we hammer men about staying in their lane. And then when they build a lane, we hammer them about leaving that lane and giving it to women. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's it for our society. The only group of people our society routinely tortures, stigmatizes, ostracizes, jails, and criminalizes for leaving their gender lane is men. Women are celebrated.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only oppression when it comes to the gender non-binary is directed at men. Like I said, so you see the progression. You can make the argument with Black women. You can't with lesbian women. And now the argument is absolutely incomprehensible because we celebrate women gender bending and leaving their lane. It's only men that we expect to occupy a space, which we will then steal from them as soon as it becomes worth occupying.
Yeah.
So it's like that their only claim to victimhood is what happens to men. And yet they're trying to make this once again about women. And it's like, at some point, this is all going to blow up. Like you can't go any further than this. Women's desire to be seen as victims, they are now appropriating victimhood that only is directed at men. Only because they're men. And if they resolve this, if they somehow figure out a way, even if it's identifying as a woman, for men to finally be able to fight back against this whole, men, you occupy your lane or we torture you. And by the way, that lane that you occupied and you made your own, it's looking a little comfortable. Now you have to leave it. And we are going to give it to women. If we actually give men a means to stop that process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically our society hitting a brick wall, I think. And I am well into the weeds of weird mentation. Essentially what this means is that the misandry bubble has to burst. And we're getting closer and closer to it. So I'm not black-pilled at all.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, like I said, things are tough right now, but so what? I think we've been through much worse. So
yeah, well, the thing is that what makes things tough now is because our society has gone this long without attending to this problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I mean, we haven't fixed this. In fact, we have all of our will is expended in ignoring it. And this is the problem that's going to crater our society. Well, I can't change that. I can't make people care about this.
Right.
I can only observe and say what I'm seeing.
Uh-huh.
And hopefully sometime in the future, when it all craters, which, I don't know if you've noticed that there's more cracks forming in the dam. When it all craters, people will look and say, oh, hey, actually we do need to attend to this. In fact, why didn't we do this a while back? If we had, we would have been much better off.
Yeah.
But like, I'm doing what I can do. I'm not black-pilled because I'm doing what I think is in me to do to try to fix the situation. And I think that's really all you can do, right?
Yeah, and
I think that's the same for you, Brian.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying I'm not ignoring it. I'm doing the work. I'm talking to people, I think we're getting the word out. I think it's working. We may not see results in our lifetime, but that's okay. I think that it will take on its own momentum. So I do have a super Rumble rant. So on Rumble we got a super chat.
Do you want me to read the two paragraphs?
You go ahead. We'll do this after.
Okay, so do the Rumble rant after?
Or I could just do it now.
I'll read the paragraphs now because I think it's a good capstone on Devon Price's inability to go that last bit to get away from the gender binary. I think cisgender women are desperate to assert power for many sensible reasons. Oh boy. And that sadly they often do so in the very same ways that men have leveraged power over them. Oh God. I think the desire to behave more like a privileged white cisgender man keeps those of us who are marginalized at each other's throats. Our misplaced fears isolate us from one another and render us more vulnerable to abuse when we really ought to be joining forces against the shared sort. Yes, okay, Devon, give women more excuses for why they get to fondle your junk. Like, seriously, this is why they're doing it. Because they have these excuses, because we consistently refuse to see, to connect to the idea that women's actions have greater consequences, which is why we're so eager to blame men for everything. I want women, trans people, and people of color to recognize that the sources of our suffering are largely the same. It's the patriarchy, the police state, the gender binary. Okay, so Devon, shut the fuck up about it. Like, if you don't like being groped and leered and harassed by women, but it's really the patriarchy. It's men's fault. It's men's fault. Well, I guess you just need to shut the fuck up about it. Yeah. And you're a man now, so you need to take ownership of that. Yeah, it's what's critical is how you perpetuate the patriarchy and whiteness that threaten us, not the awkward unfamiliarity of a fellow oppressed person. Okay, yes, but
That's kind of thrown in
what you're
there.
what you're
I don't know.
saying is that these women who touched you are so much more awkward and oppressed by patriarchy that they and imprinted on by victims of patriarchy that they're engaging in this behavior. Really, Devon, what you should be doing is because they're greater victims of patriarchy than you could ever be, is you should just do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really. I want us to stop aspiring to wield the privilege we imagine white cisgender men have. Ooh, wow, that's a slip. You imagine. Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
Devon. You're imagining that shit.
Yeah, you are.
And start working to comprehend one another's struggles instead. I don't want my fear to keep me isolated and lashing out at the wrong targets. Okay, all right. I don't need to appeal to patriarchy to say that the women who fucking sexually assaulted me, and they are responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, they're individually responsible for it. Now, I will decry a society that simply is hell-bent on ignoring the fact that women engage in sexual assault. Like, hell-bent on it, because they just don't give a fuck about people like me or men who've experienced the same. You know, but at the same time, these women are individually responsible for what they did, right? The patriarchy has nothing to do with it. Well, first of all, it doesn't exist. But it's like, how can you have this attitude? And like I said, this is a person contending with trying to make his gender fundamentalism face a reality that isn't fitting into that gender fundamentalism. Meanwhile, he's talking about being gender non-binary. No, you're not, Devon. You are very much part of the gender binary. You are able to... essentially, what's really hilarious is the gender binary people or the gender non-binary people say they project the most superficial gender binary, right? Mm-hmm. They say, well, the gender binary is really, I don't know, men like cafe latte and women like cafe mocha. And they're like, well, I'm drinking a cafe mocha and I am a man. I have defied the binary. Meanwhile, I think that men are the ones who are entirely responsible morally for society. And men's actions are so huger than women's. And women's are merely reactions to men, and we should blah, blah, blah. It's like, but I'm drinking mocha, therefore I'm gender non-binary. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what they do, is they project the gender binary onto the most trivial aspects of gender, even things that they fucking make up, and to hide from themselves how very binary they are. Okay, I'm done.
Yep. All right.
Frustrating.
No, I know. Like I said, they're close, but there's some things that need to be shaken out.
Yeah, well, their entire ideology is like, it's in conflict with reality, and they're like, oh, but I need that because reasons.
They do.
I need that gender binary.
I mean, like, if you believe this about men or the patriarchy, which to me is just men, or it's useful to scapegoat men, why would you want to live as a man? Why do you want to join the enemy? Maybe that's why you get so much shit. I don't know. Anyway, NobaFan21 gives us $1 and says, I was just wondering, because, he always gives $1, and that's fine. Like, I'm grateful regardless. But apparently there's a little $ button, and you can, like, raise the amount you want to donate. But anyway, he says, or she, I'm not sure, this along with the family court are two good reasons we should encourage more men to say they're trans. This cultural overlook needs to end. I guess you can make the recommendation, but I think that the only thing it's going to do is they're going to basically, like, stop taking trans identity seriously.
I don't know
And
about that, Brian. I think they will continue to because they need that sweet, sweet victimhood nectar.
yeah, but I mean, maybe just trans women.
Let's put it this way: men shouldn't have to identify as women to be
No, they
treated as human
shouldn't.
beings.
No,
But
no.
unfortunately, if there's a future situation where a man can basically say, yes, I am a woman who identifies as a man. Thank you. Please give me my rights. I'm gonna say take it. Fucking take
Yeah,
it. I'm not gonna
yeah,
like I there is so much goddamn pain out there in men that if there's any legal recourse that you can start having your rights respected, take it.
yeah.
But I honestly, it disgusts me that men would have to do that.
Yeah, I don't think they should have to, and most of them won't. But um,
But at the very
I
least, maybe we'll get the conversation
yeah,
started.
yeah. Or what you could do is you could just identify as a masculine presenting lesbian trans
No,
woman, and
did you hear what I said though? What you can identify as a woman who identifies as a man.
huh?
You can
Oh,
identify
you can
as a
identify as a
woman
woman. Yeah.
who identifies as a man. There you go.
There you go. So yeah, and then, but I mean, they can't, I guess, technically deny you because that would be transphobic. So you could do that if you wanted.
Hmm.
Identify
Eventually,
as a
that's going to be the
masculine
case.
presenting lesbian.
Or just as a woman who identifies as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, like how can you contradict that? Because there is a gender identity, a woman
Mm-hmm.
identifying as a man.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for
This
sure.
individual, this individual who's written this article is someone who is a biologically female, I believe, who identifies as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And why shouldn't a biologically male individual identify as a biological female who identifies as a man? There you go.
Yep. There you go.
How can you deny that? You can't, not by this logic.
No, not by this logic.
All
So
right.
I guess that's the end of the article. I mean, there's just a
There's
little
more we
left,
didn't
but
read, but god damn,
yeah, it's super long winded for no
it
reason.
needs editing.
Yeah, yeah, and we've been
Yeah.
going for like 2 hours, so I think that's good. I think we got the
Yeah.
gist.
I think we delivered what's essential to this to you guys, and we
Yeah,
tore it apart. And also, thank you very much for your support. That's very appreciated.
yeah,
I guess I
thank
should
you.
whine about yelling into the abyss more often. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, so I'll
So
just remind everyone we are doing our monthly fundraiser. It's at feedthebadger.com/support if you want to make sure that we can continue to really you know what? I think that we probably just boggle the hell out of most people what we talk about. So please go to feedthebadger.com/support. Yeah. And if you want to give us a tip, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/just the tip. And
all
Brian,
right.
if you have any thoughts or want to take it out.
Yeah, and if you send through a super chow while the show is offline, because sometimes we get them, um, we'll just try to read them on the next show. So
Mm-hmm.
you know that what I would suggest is that you watch all of our content so you don't miss your super chow being read out.
Mm-hmm.
um.
Oh
So
my
anyway,
God.
yeah.
Is that like is that a jab towards
No, no. It's. I mean, like I have gotten super chows like in the middle of the night, you know, like, and I'll see them the next morning.
I can
And I'll
just
be like,
imagine.
I'm
I
not
can
gonna
just
read this
imagine you
on
like.
air.
I just imagine you at night and your phone vibrates and your just eyes
Yeah,
open up and you're like, oh
yeah.
shit. Is it? And maybe it's one of those cryptic ones that you just look
Oh,
at and
they're
you're like,
almost always. Or it's like the like because it's been so long since I've done the show. Like I'm like I don't even know what this is about. Like, but
yeah. But I like the cryptic ones because you're like, is this like a message from some alien life form or is it drunk texting or
yeah, yeah, it could be. I don't know. So
yeah.
it's okay that you do that if you do that. Like I don't have a problem with it. but
Nobody,
I'm not
yeah.
going to be able to read it on air because it'll be after the show has ended, right? So the best thing is to either wait until the next show and then do it, or if you've already done it, just watch the next show, because I'll make it a priority to read them out first before we get into whatever we're going to get into. So
yeah, we do something with them. We also have a channel in our Discord. If you want to join us in our Discord, it's badgernation.online. And we have a channel where the super chows pop up because I programmed that, which was interesting process. Yeah, they can see it. Yeah, you can see the super chow channel in the Discord, which is again at badgernation.online. And
join us.
You are also you're also sending messages to the general community for them to ponder over as well. You know, I'm sure that some very enterprising person could construct some kind of strange postmodern performance piece out of that. Yeah.
Some kind of like a haiku.
Yeah, or just some kind of like constructing a world through the process of discovered texts.
Yeah. Make a super chat that's nothing but adverbs. Make
a super chat that's nothing but starting paragraphs with but.
Oh God.
Send us your orphaned butts.
Yeah.
Floating in from the dark, just ghost butts. Zombie butts. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut up. All right.
So we're
back to you, Brian.
I'm ready to close it out now. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about this blog post and what we discussed, and what the situation, like if you have any like experience or thoughts on like what it is to be a trans man in today's society, feel free to leave us that in the comments as well. And most importantly, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Yes.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.